Hey everyone, it's Dave from Nerdbox, and welcome back to another episode of Lost Horror Media, where we dig up the bones of horror history and bring long buried nightmares to light. Now, before we begin today's episode, don't forget to drop a like on this video, drop a comment as we're going along, and if you're not subscribed to the channel, please do that. Some might think the Resident Evil franchise began with a sleek laser hallway. But it could have started in a mansion, with blood, with fear, and with the man who practically invented zombies, George A. Romero. Before the 2002 action horror blockbuster that we got, there was a very different script that existed. One dripping in atmosphere, tension, and gore. So much gore, in fact, it earned an NC-17 rating. And then it vanished. This is the story of the Resident Evil film that was so true to the game and too terrifying for Hollywood, so they buried it before it could rise. Released in 1996 for the PlayStation, Capcom's Resident Evil wasn't just another game, it was a cultural phenomenon. Originally titled Biohazard in Japan, it was inspired by classic horror cinema, primarily George A. Romero's Night of the Living Dead. You played as Chris Redfield or Jill Valentine, elite members of the STARS unit, investigating a string of grisly murders in the Arklay Mountains. What you found was a mansion teeming with the undead, deadly creatures, and the sinister Umbrella Corporation. With its cinematic camera angles, fixed perspectives, pre-rendered backgrounds, and an emphasis on survival over combat, Resident Evil changed how horror worked in games. It brought dread into your living room, and you didn't just play it, you survived it. It sold over 5 million copies, and it kickstarted an entire new genre in gaming, survival horror. And not only did it do that, it ignited a zombie invasion on the big and small screens. After the success of the first game, Capcom understood what it had on its hands and invited George A. Romero to direct a Japanese commercial for the second game, Resident Evil 2, in 1988. The result was a 30-second fever dream of moaning corpses and iconic characters. It was short, but it showed promise, and Hollywood noticed. Romero was hired to adapt the game into a feature film, and what he turned in was arguably the most faithful script we've ever seen for a game-to-film adaptation. His screenplay closely followed the plot of the original game. Jill and Chris explore the Spencer Mansion, discover the T-Virus, uncover Wesker's betrayal, and face off against Tyrant. But Romero didn't hold back. The script was brutal, graphic, and disturbing. There were scenes of decaying corpses dragging themselves down hallways, and there was even a moment that featured a slow transformation into a zombie that was described as being in agonizing detail. The MPAA rated it NC-17 immediately. It was too scary, too faithful, and ironically, that may have been its undoing.
Hey, RPD. Show me your hands. What the fuck?
By the year 2000, studios were chasing teen-friendly horror. Scream, Final Destination, The Faculty. They were all PG-13 or soft R, and an NC-17 rating was box office poison. Things weren't like they are right now, where Terrifier 2 came into the big screen and changed how we see our horror movies, getting unrated versions not rated by the MPAA. And back then, Romero refused to compromise his vision. He didn't want to turn Resident Evil into just another MTV cult horror flick. He wanted a serious, atmospheric movie grounded in dread. And the studio wanted action. They wanted mass appeal. They wanted Matrix zombies. Enter Paul W.S. Anderson, known for Mortal Kombat. He pitched a new direction, new characters, a facility under the mansion, and a sleek, stylized, more cinematic approach. No Jill, no Chris, no Barry, no mansion. Romero was dropped, his script was shelved, and his vision was forever lost.
Deep underground, in a top-secret research lab, security has been breached. A deadly virus capable of contaminating the entire world has been released.
The Resident Evil that hit theaters in 2002 was a financial success, spawning a 6-film franchise. Mila Jovovich's Alice became a sci-fi action hero. It was stylish, fast-paced, and it had a killer soundtrack. For longtime fans of the games like me, something was missing. Now, I'll admit that I liked the first one because it was different, it had a different spin on the story, and I was interested in seeing where it was going. In fact, the teaser trailer that came out for Part 2 with the Umbrella Corporation and their agent cream, it was perfect.
Imagine a world where you can reverse the effects of age, stress, and sun. From the leading name in biotechnology comes Regenerate, another breakthrough from the Umbrella Corporation. Always consult your doctor before starting treatment. Some side effects may occur.
But then what happened after that was just tragic. It wasn't the Resident Evil that I grew to love gaming with. In fact, my love for this franchise, just to sidetrack us a little bit, goes all the way back to the Resident Evil 5 release, where me and a group of friends at our local Best Buy store turned it into a haunted house or a zombie invasion store at midnight to release the game, where even the army got involved. Well, let's get back to this. Where was the mansion? Where were the slow building scares? Where was the oppressive silence, the mystery, the survival? Instead of Romero's dread-soaked nightmare, we got a mutant-powered supermodel doing kung fu flips. It was entertaining, sure, but it wasn't Resident Evil. And ever since this pairing of Paul W.S. Anderson and his wife, Mila Jovovich, we can't escape it. Not only in Resident Evil, but they've done several films outside of this that are the same story beats and the same Mila Jovovich kicking people's ass. In fact, she had a movie come out this year with Dave Bautista that I sat through, and it was probably one of the worst films that I've seen in quite some time. So what happened to George A. Romero's script? Well, it still exists, and copies of the 1999 draft have been circulating for years in fan circles. No footage was ever shot, but storyboards were drawn. A few even surfaced during Romero's retrospectives after his death in 2017. Now, according to reports, some early scouting locations had happened, but once the plug was pulled, everything was shelved. And luckily for us, this year, or 2025 by the time that you're watching this, a documentary finally brought the truth to light. Directed by Brandon Salisbury, George A. Romero's Resident Evil chronicles the lost film, featuring in-depth interviews, concept art, and dramatized scenes based on Romero's script.
Capcom didn't hide the fact that the games were inspired directly by George Romero's films.
This film just feels so much more gory, so much more violent, and so much more angry.
I think George really took things to the next level on that.
This guy knew Resident Evil. The Resident Evil series exists because of him.
And then suddenly, the plug was pulled on this.
For fans of both Romero and Resident Evil, the documentary is a bittersweet gift, a peek inside a masterpiece that we never got to see. George A. Romero's Resident Evil could have changed everything, and it could have redefined how video game movies are seen today. In fact, it might have returned zombies to their terrifying roots years before 28 years later, and The Walking Dead. Instead, it sits on the shelf, undead, unfinished, and unforgettable. And hopefully, the studios will take notice with how many times they have failed at bringing this franchise to the big screen and pleasing fans, and they'll just go back to the script and finally make it. Now, this has been another episode of Lost Horror Media, and if you enjoyed this dive into cinematic purgatory, please consider subscribing to the channel. Don't worry about hitting the notification bell because we'll be there in your subscription feed, but please drop a like on this video, drop a comment, help expand and beat the YouTube algorithm for us so that we can continue making these videos and get back to doing interviews with independent filmmakers and shining the light on projects that you need to check out in the future. And once again, this is Dave. I thank you for tuning in. And until next time, watch your back and never trust the Umbrella Corporation.